anybody here this morning on the holiday weekend, and here y'all are. That's so great. We're glad you're with us this morning at Parkrose Community United Church of Christ as we share worship together. Before we actually begin, I would like to introduce a new song to you. I know, roll your eyes. So we're going to learn a new song that's called Breath of God, Peace of God. And you can remain seated. We'll sing this as the call to prayer as when we get later into the service. But it's a wonderful song that I just learned, so I wanted to share it. So Nikki's going to play it all the way through, then we'll sing it through once as a means of practicing. Okay? As we gather today, we offer our respects to the ancestors and descendants of the original people of this land. We invoke their presence as we welcome everyone by saying, whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. I invite you to stand as you're able as we join in the amazing hymn, music by Beethoven, and the text called Hymn to Joy. Joyful, joyful, we adore you. of prayer, starting with our new centering song, Breath of God, Breath of Peace. Together in one voice. God of our lives, hear our prayer. We are bombarded each day with the news of injustice in our world. We so badly want to do something, but we don't know what to do. Touch our hearts so we can discern how best to use our gifts and talents to bring justice and compassion to our world. Embolden us to speak our truth and to speak it to those who hold power over us. Strengthen us to stand and walk in solidarity with all who seek relief from oppression and violence. Help us to know you are with us as we find new ways to be church. We come to the silence, open to your presence. We respond together. We feel empowered to be your hands and feet in our neighborhood and world. Invite the young people to come join me in the front as we sing our song. Welcome. I don't mean to scare you, but I know I'm this weird guy. So are you having fun? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you get to start school this week? No, not yet? The 9th. Are you excited about that? Well, I want to look at something that I think you might learn in school. Do you know what that is? You know what it's called? The alphabet. And you know the song, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P. When I was your age, I always wondered what an elemental was. and you can probably help her. So the alphabet is a bunch of letters, and they're in an order. So it always starts with A, and it always ends with Z. For us, for other countries, they start some with a letter called alpha, which means A. That's what our A is. And bet is B. So alphabet means A, B, and so on. But are any of those particularly better than the other ones? Is one better? Or?
Z is the best in Scrabble.
Z is the best in Scrabble. But just in the alphabet, not one of them has a particular value over another one. And so when we talk about who's better with people, I think we should think about that like the alphabet. That people aren't better than each other for any particular reason. They're people, and they're in an alphabet. If you have a list of names, one doesn't necessarily isn't better than the other. Now we have a whole system in our culture and other cultures where things are given value, but I think if we start with everybody's being the same value, that's a better off for all of us. So if you can remember that no letter is better than any other, and no person is really any better than any other, just because they're a person. Okay, let's have a prayer. Dear God, we thank you for all that you give us, and ask that you help us remember that just because something is in a particular order doesn't mean that any one of them is better than the other. In your many beautiful names. Amen. All right, I think there's nursery or I think otherwise you stay with your folks. Okay? Let's sing. The gist of this piece by Thomas Merton, great American Roman Catholic priest who was a contemplative. He spent a lot of his life contemplating how things work. And in this short piece about No Man is an Island, he recalls the John Donne poem, No Man is an Island entire of itself. And he says the most important value that we have in a group is that we need each other in a group. And that everybody, just like we said with the kids, everybody counts when you're in a community because everybody brings something special to that group. So if you can remember that concept that nobody is an island entire of itself, that we thrive because we share with each other and because we value each other. I'd like to invite Cindy to come bring us the morning scripture lesson from the Gospel of Luke. We have been in the habit in this congregation for the last several years of following what's called the narrative lectionary, and we're switching back to the Revised Common Lectionary for this year. That doesn't mean necessarily a whole lot for you, but the Revised Common Lectionary is most denominations, including the Roman Catholic Church, have had a committee get together and decide what would be a good scripture for a particular day. And in the Revised Common Lectionary, you get an Old Testament reading, a psalm, a gospel lesson, and an epistle lesson. So Don't worry, you're not going to hear them all every Sunday. But it makes it a little easier for me in some ways to pick one of the four. So the lesson for today is from the Gospel of Luke.
Good morning. Luke 14:1 and then 7 through 14. Jesus tells a story which turns cultural norms upside down. One Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Then Jesus said to his host, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed.
We're back in the world of parables, my friends. Those stories that aren't what they look like on the surface often. That there's more to them than what the story that jumps off the page is. It seems to me this particular parable is really about privilege. It's about assuming there is an order, that some are better than others, and they deserve the seats at the best seats, whatever that might be. I don't know if that's the ones closest to the food or what, or the biggest wine glasses, who knows. But I think for us to consider this story, we have to keep in mind this pull between privilege and justice. Just because we are privileged in many ways, and we all have privilege in our bones, doesn't mean that justice is met because of the privilege. And in fact, sometimes only when we acknowledge the privilege and try to understand another person do we really get at what justice is about. Parables, as I said, what does it say? Truth hidden in plain sight. And I think that's a good description. Jesus told stories that people would understand. And also, they would understand the irony in the story. Now, when we read the Bible, we tend to take every word as just at face value. I think Jesus was a wonderful speaker, a debater even, because he would put things out there that to us seem like, well, that seems a little odd, but we don't really question it. And if you had been alive and heard Jesus in person say those things, you would go, wait a minute, bud, that doesn't make any sense. And it has a lot to do with cultural norms. And in the culture of Jesus' time, which parts of that culture still exist in the Middle East today, honor and shame were very big parts of that culture. People often acted out of honor or shame. So that the part in there where he said, if you sit in a good seat and you're asked to move to a less good seat, you'll be humiliated. And we're all going, so you want me to sit over there? Okay. But to someone in Jesus' culture, that being asked to move, you made a terrible social gap sitting in the wrong place. And not only do you humiliate yourself, you bring dishonor on your family. So to understand that Jesus is saying, I think, in this parable, the seats are equal. He says, the poor shall be exalted, the exalted shall be brought low. And it's about flipping it around so that there aren't those norms that say, only if you have these qualifications do you get to sit in this seat. Otherwise, you have to sit over here by the door. So keep in mind when you're hearing a parable, it's a nice story, and there's a good lesson in the face value of this story about honoring people who have less than you do. But the important, a really important part to that is that wasn't the cultural norm. So Jesus, if you honored what Jesus was asking you to do in this story, you put yourself at risk in your culture. Now, I've tried to think of something in our own culture that would be similar. I haven't been terribly successful about that. I don't know if any of you have any ideas about that, but there are certain expectations in our culture, and if you go along with them, you're fine with the culture. You may not be morally fine. It does seem to me that a lot of times lately, especially, those breaches that are cultural norms, like money is good, you should be busy earning money, you should be making wealth for your business, clash with you can do whatever you want to anybody. You can be someone who calls out people because of the color of their skin, because the value is in making money, so you get to do whatever you want. And I think those kinds of situations are really important for us to speak out and say, no, that's not the way it should work. That may be the cultural expectation. But I've learned a different way of looking at that by being a Christian. There's always a hook. I keep using that word. There's a hook in there. We can say, yes, I'm a Christian, I go to church, I'm a good person. But are you taking the risks that we should be taking to stand up for what's really right? It's a challenge. And I admit that I half the time don't know what, I feel like I should do something, but I don't know what to do. But if we listen and consider and discern that process of looking at all the various perspectives involved in the problem, we can move forward in a way that is morally acceptable, even though it may not be what the culture accepts. It's a tough situation. I'm asking you to think outside the box in a lot of ways here, because it's more than just what's on the surface. It's that what's underneath and where we're called to be when injustice happens, wherever it happens. So the place at the table that we get at the table, think about that. Why do you get a particular place at the table? Is it because you're privileged? Is it because you earned it? Is it an accident? And what about all the people who are excluded from the table? I think this parable is a lot about leveling the playing field, that those who exalt themselves will be humiliated, brought down, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. It's a crazy world. And only when we call out the injustice are we really doing the work, I think, that God calls us to do. can remain seated as we sing our communion song, As the Grain Was Scattered. As the grain was scattered on the hills, and was brought together to become our bread, so we gather from the ends of the earth, join around this table as your church, on hillsides you feed us, through deserts you lead us, from the vine of David we will drink, as we give you glory in this holy place, for the gifts of knowledge and of power, through your child Jesus Christ we live, on hillsides you feed us, through deserts you lead us, now and sing, in Christ we have new life. As the grain was scattered on the hills, and was brought together to become our bread, so we gather from the ends of earth, join around this table as your church. That table that we're called to is a table of community where everybody counts. And it's important to remember that Jesus, throughout his ministry, sat at tables the culture deemed unacceptable. And he did it to show that everybody is welcome at table. And we remember especially that table that was the last time that Jesus met with his friends, the closest people, his community. And they shared that Passover meal for just days before he was put to death. He was murdered by the oppressors. And he took bread in that time and he broke it, gave thanks for it, and he gave it to his friends and he said, "This bread is my body. It shows you that I lived and walked among you as a human being. And it shows that in its brokenness, we come together to remember what we are called to do in this world. Every time you eat, remember me and remember that." Then he took the cup and he blessed it and he gave it to his friends and he said, "This cup is filled with the juice of the grape, that juice which symbolizes the blood that courses through all of our veins, that gives us life. It's the source of our life, and it's also the source of the passion we have to do the work God calls each and every one of us to do. Every time you drink, remember me and remember that." Let's pray. Holy One, we are so grateful for all that you give us. And And we ask you to bless these gifts of grape and grain, that they would feed us in ways that give us strength to do the work you call us to do in this world, to upend cultural norms so that everyone is included in the broader community. As we come to this table, help us remember there is room at this table for everyone. Amen. Sharon will come help me this morning. We take communion by intinction. It's a long word that means you take a piece of bread and dip it in the juice. Very simple. There's bread and there's also gluten-free option there. Bring your offering with you and leave it in the basket here, and then receive the bread and dip it in the cup and return to your seat. We'll start here, work our way back, and then forward on the other side. Remember, this is not the table of a particular church or group. It's God's table, and every single person is welcome at this table. All is ready. Please come. This is the time in the service when we share the prayers that we bring with us to the service this morning. What would you like to share?
God, prayers for all of us as we begin to struggle with the domestic violence in Texas in this case.
Walter asks prayers for all of us as we struggle with issues of domestic violence. God of love.
Prayers for my niece Tara. She has about $13,000 worth of dental work that she needs to have done, and they won't do it because her blood pressure is too high. So she's got the quandary of having to pay for it, and then the quandary of getting her blood pressure stabilized so she can actually go forward.
Cami asks prayers for her niece Tara, who needs a lot of dental work, but they can't do it until her blood pressure stabilizes. So she's got two issues. How am I going to pay for the dental work? How can I get my blood pressure to where it goes? Prayers for her and for all those attending her. God of love. Yes.
Pray for the Bahamas and the whole East Coast.
Prayers for the Bahamas and the whole East Coast as Hurricane Dorian moves very slowly and evidently with a lot of rainfall. Prayers for everyone who's in the path of that hurricane and other natural disasters as well. God of love.
Thank you.
I ask prayers, more than prayers. We need to do something, folks. when shootings occur so regularly that we become numb to them. So I ask for serious discernment about what we can do to help stop this scourge of gun violence. God of love. Amen.
Thank you for your presence.
Let's pray together. Gracious God, we open our hearts to you in this moment. Hearts that are broken with stories of natural disaster, of violence against one another, of illness and of grief. We lift up all those we know who are struggling. May they feel your presence with them, and may we be that presence for them whenever we possibly can. We pray for our leaders that they can find a way to break the logjam and get something done, especially related to gun violence at this particular moment. We pray for world leaders that they learn that violence does not lead to peace in no way. That it's only by developing cultures of peace that we can get along together on this planet. We pray for all who live on the city streets in impossible situations where solutions don't seem to be evident. And in the midst of all of these horrendous stories, we still hear stories of people speaking the truth, of reaching out to one another, of honoring everyone. And we ask in our prayer that those who are able to do that be strengthened by our prayers, and that we too can find the courage to step up and be part of solutions that involve prayer and action. All of these things we ask in the name of our Son, your Son, Jesus Christ, our brother and teacher, who taught us to pray together in these words from the Gospel of Luke. Abba God, help us
to honor your name. Come and set up your kingdom. Give us each day the food we need. Forgive our sins as we forgive everyone who has done wrong to us. And keep us from being tempted. Amen.
Our peace moment today is one of those stories that out of a horrible situation comes a story of strength and courage. For 9 months, Rosa Gutierrez Lopez has been living at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church in Bethesda, Maryland. She can't leave the property. If she does, she risks being deported to El Salvador. Like millions of immigrants to the U.S., Gutierrez Lopez is undocumented. She's lived in the U.S. for about 14 years, since she fled violence in El Salvador. She has 3 U.S.-born children and had a life in Fredericksburg, Virginia. She was granted deferred action in 2014, which gave her a reprieve from deportation. But when she went to renew her status in 2017, it was refused. Immigration and Customs Enforcement slapped an ankle monitoring bracelet on her, and she was given a deadline, leave by December 10, 2018. She didn't know what to do until the church opened its doors and promised her sanctuary. It's been 8 months since these reporters spoke for the first time with her, and she's still on the multi-acre site of the Cedar Lane Church. There's no timeline for when she might be able to leave. But on this sun-filled summer day, Gutierrez Lopez, who was a cook in an Italian restaurant, has settled into a routine of sorts at the church she now calls home, her mood matching the weather. I'm very busy, she said. I have English classes, I'm going to start yoga classes, meditation. I volunteer twice a month cutting vegetables here at the church. She loves food prep. It reminds her of working even when she could still work. And the food goes to soup kitchens and food pantries. Yoga is hard, she says, but I like it. She's brighter and chattier. She seems barely to notice the monitoring bracelet on her leg. And she's no longer separated from her children, Maria, 12, Juan Pablo, 9, and her youngest, John. He's just 7 and because of Down syndrome has special needs. This month she'll give a sermon at a special bilingual service she's preparing now. I'll bless our countries because there's so much violence. I'll also thank God for life and for keeping our kids well, she said. I'll also pray to God that Donald Trump opens his heart a little and that he has a little compassion and love, and that he liberates all the kids from detention centers. Gutierrez Lopez has more prayers. She'll pray for nearly 700 people, mainly Latino immigrants, in Mississippi who were arrested during coordinated ICE raids in August, and for those who were unjustly detained in other countries. It's not just here that there's the controversy of racism and family separation. It's global, she said. Not all people who immigrate are bad. You'll find announcements on the back of the program. Tomorrow's Labor Day, the office will be closed. Next Sunday is Homecoming Sunday, September 8th. And we're going to celebrate in the courtyard. So pray for no rain and a nice, lovely temperature. And we will worship there and confirm 3 youth who have gone through the confirmation process and have decided they want to be confirmed. And at the end of the service, we will, before we go to the potluck, we will dedicate the peace pole, which is, if you go out the door, immediately in that garden spot, just to the right, left of the door, right in kind of the corner of the building there. So check that out. That was a gift from Rotary International. It was planted this week by Jessica Lee, and it's a great addition to our campus. Also, there's a potluck next Sunday, so bring food and whatever you'd like to bring it to share. And you don't have to sign up for anything. There's no particular order. If it's all dessert, that's fine. All right, on the 14th, a week from Saturday, is Thelma Nance's memorial service in this place. In the 21st, Saturday after that, is Oktoberfest here. This is a major fundraiser for us and a major fundraiser for us, reaching out to the community immediately around us. There are flyers on the counter outside the entryway. Please take several and send them to friends, put them up in local businesses, ask permission first, and come and enjoy a wonderful afternoon of German food, some dancing, I'm hoping, maybe, maybe not, we'll see, and some lederhosen, so, and 2 accordion players who are back behind. don't miss that. All right. Other announcements? Yes. Come on up to the front if you have an announcement.
So you may have heard the young woman from Sweden, Greta Thunberg. She's sailed in a boat from Europe to here, and she's now in the United States. She used a sailing boat with solar panels, and her father went with her with another gentleman to help get here. So September 20th is the Global Climate Day, and so I want you to keep in mind on the 20th, that's a Friday at 10:30, people are going to gather at the courthouse, a large group of people, and then we're going to walk to OMSI, and there'll be tabling events there, but there's going to be speakers at the courthouse, so really think about coming to that, because we're trying to help our present and future generations. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'll try to have a handout next week.
Good.
Hello.
One correction there is, I am in communications with Portland Police about a women's strength self-defense class, and it looks like it's not happening on the 7th, but it is on your announcement, so we're still scheduling that. They're looking for somebody who can come in and do a program for us, so once I know more about that, I can let you know. So you should see me if you're interested in that class, but just want to let you know that the 7th, there is no self-defense class. Secondly, with Homecoming Sunday, it's also the brand new school year for Sunday school. So I'm looking for people who want to help and teach. You should come talk to me. Also, we're having a really fun day for the kids next week. So some bingo, maybe having some other special things, and then we do have our potluck afterwards. So we're having a special Sunday, and it'll be fun. So looking forward to seeing you pretty good.
Another chance I get to tell you how great I think you are. Thank you, thank you. And you, reminder for Church Women United's Human Rights Celebration Days this Friday, September 6th at Smith Memorial Presbyterian Church in Fairview on 223rd. You're all welcome to join us for the meeting, the program, the presentation of the Human Rights Award to Pastor Don and this congregation, and the potluck afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
This doesn't come under an announcement of anything great happening, but last night, 9 guests and myself joined the cook, Ron, and Clay, and Tanya, and Erica for the dinners in the orchard, or as my friend said, sinners in the orchard. It was a great time. This is something I bought at the annual auction, and the food was wonderful. The company was great. Everybody had a super time, and I had to tell them to get out because they wanted to do the dishes, I'm sure. So I urge you, and I thank all of those people. The food was, the menu was just super. We all left in a happy mood. And I urge you, my friends were not all church members here. They were members of other church in my family. And I just took the moment to tell them how proud I was of this church because of their community involvement. It's so important that we support our own community. And this is a small congregation. But my friends from the Catholic Church said they never heard anything like that in their church. So I said, come over and take a few lessons.
Testify, sister, testify.
Thank you again for accepting me into this. I am not a member of this church, although I've come for a long time enjoying the Presbyterian Church when it was Eastminster 1,000 years ago. And I am very proud to be a member of this congregation. Yes. And thank you all so much. And next time you come to the auction, boy, put your money on that.
I think Barbara needs to run the auction too. Yes. Also, there are vegetables. I don't know if there's any fruit, but there's produce out in the breezeway this morning, so be sure to take what you want and leave some donation for that will help support our winter dinners. All right, I think we're ready to stand as we sing our closing song. Oh, no. I'm just anxious.
All that love going around there. Before I don the hat, I had a couple little quick messages, or quick announcements myself. You know, we've got all these things coming up. It's a busy time of year, but there's things I want to kind of plant the seed for that will be happening a little bit later in the year. We've got the craft bazaar we're going to do the first weekend in November. And last year, if you remember, we had a church table where you can either buy a booth space if you're a great crafter and you just like, that's your passion and you've got all this stuff, you want to have your own table. But if you're just kind of the modest little, you know, I like to do this, but I don't want to do a whole bunch of it and I don't want a table, you can bring your crafts to me. Because we're going to put craft items, your homemade craft items, craft goods, baked goods, those kind of things. We had scarves last year. Jessie made little wine stoppers. And it was very successful. It was a very successful addition to the bazaar. So we're going to do that again. So I just wanted to put that in your mind, that you can be thinking about what you would like to contribute to the church table. 100% of the proceeds go to the church on that one. And then our next fundraiser is the holiday tea, and I'll be looking for table sponsors for that. So just a couple of things to put in your mind as we do all these other fun things. And then the Ladies Beach weekend, that's the weekend of October 6th. I promise I'll send out an email this week to let you know what's going on with that. Because I haven't been able to get that done. So I'll be giving you more information and give you the list of who's coming. And I think we actually need a couple more to buy in. So I'll try to get those details out for you. All right, now we got, it's the first of the month. It is the first of the month. And we will lift up birthdays and anniversaries. And let's start with the anniversaries. Do we have any September anniversaries besides mine?
Mine?
And yours is the
20th.
20th.
We've been married 5 years.
5 years and together forever, right?
Yeah, 21. But it's also Jim and Sally's.
Yes, Jim and
Nina's
Sally's.
anniversary is the 20th.
Jim and Sally's.
And I think it's 45 for them.
And it's my anniversary tomorrow, mine and Clayton's anniversary, 19 years. All right, any September birthdays?
No, this is an anniversary.
Oh, what's the anniversary?
It would be our 65th.
It would be yourself.
Yeah, on the 9th.
On the 9th. Well, it's a good month to get married. Anyone else on anniversaries? All right, let's do birthdays. I think we've got some September birthdays in this one too. Yes?
14th.
The 14th, that's a good day. That's also Tanya's birthday. 9th. The 9th. Well,
16th.
16th, all right. And mine is on the 15th. It's an awesome month. Anyone else? Seems like Violet's is
Yours is the 30th.
the 30th. So our little girl Violet, her birthday's at the end of the month on the 30th.
Or the 31st. It's right at the end.
Well, there is no September 31st, so
That's
let's go with the 30th. We can act. All right, let's sing happy birthday to everybody.
All right. Anything else? All right. My brain must be in holiday mode. Now, let's stand as we're able and join in our closing hymn, Hope for a World.
Everyone resets each other's
Our service might be over, our worship might be over, but our service continues, because we didn't just go to church. We are the church. Go in peace and live in love and justice. Amen.
Amen.